Okay. Hello, this is Martin and Patricia from Edu Musica. Today we have Ursula from Kobe also with us. We are friends for many years. We've been singing in the choir together when we were students. And now, well, she's a founder of Kobe, and she's really involved in developing literacy with children. But I'll let her explain more about herself and what she does, and we'll have a great discussion then about our topic. Go ahead, Ursula.
Thank you so much, Martin, for inviting me. It's always a great pleasure to talk about music, of course, and about my favorite subject, which is learning to read. Yeah, I hope you will find and your audience will find it useful, the things that I can share with you. So yeah, shall I just share my screen and give you a little introduction?
Go ahead, go ahead. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Do you see my
screen? We see it, yeah. All okay, well, great. Go ahead.
Great. So I'm a founder or co-founder of Kobe. And basically I have a dyslexia story to share with you. I'm a parent also, and an architect and a designer, and among other things. And my oldest daughter has dyslexia. And for me, it has been really, in a way, a very personal journey, but also a professional one, while we were searching for all the solutions and working through the struggles that she faced as a kid in learning to read. So much so that after finding some really fantastic solution and great tricks how to help a child with dyslexia learn to read, I really became a little bit obsessed with it. And you know, it's always good to turn your obsession into something more. I decided to found a company around these ideas about solutions. And I was really lucky also to find some other people that were willing to go on this journey with me. And today with Martin, we'll be talking a little bit about how music and reading relate. And I promised I will prepare a few slides about how the brain learns to read, and the history of how reading and script developed. So reading is really complex. And if we look at it, why, it's also very, very clear. And it is not only that children with dyslexia struggle with learning to read, but actually a quarter of population really struggles. Because what happens in the brain for us to, you know, to transport thoughts from one head to another is really rather amazing. And it requires a very good specific process of teaching and a lot of engagement and practice on the side of a child. So yeah, speech basically developed 500,000 years ago, really, really long time ago. And when humans started developing this capacity to basically exchange ideas, yeah, this was a really long journey before it came so far. So just before this, we started this talk, we were discussing with Martin that before anything else, humans invented music, right? Because basically, first big invention after speech was musical instruments, which were, I think, first musical instrument date from like 45,000 years ago or something like that. Do you remember, Martin?
Yes, actually, the oldest instrument that was found originates in Slovenia, also our home country. It was a Neanderthal flute, actually a bone with holes made in it, so it can be used as a flute. So actually, yeah,
it was
40
made
plus thousand years ago.
yeah.
Well, the question is, what was before speech or music? You know, both are kind of expressions of what you see and what you feel and what you think. Though speech is a bit more clear, perhaps more concise. You can express specific ideas and thoughts, while music is more expressing emotions and feelings and
Exactly,
so
yeah.
on. But they're kind of two sides of the same coin in a way.
Right, yeah. So I like to think that people started singing probably before they really were able to express clear ideas. But anyhow, then they invented flutes and drums and such instruments. And it took really long time before they figure out that they can draw. And the first wall paintings were invented about 30,000 years ago, or date 30,000 years ago. And you see how much time it took before we figured out that actually we can leave a marking in the space that would bring the message across, so that maybe the next group comes to that cave and can see a trace of the group that was there previously. And
Yeah.
further from that, the petroglyphs that were invented much later then managed to put these images into a sequence, so that they were able to tell maybe, oh, there were animals here and we killed them and then we went on. So just this notion of making a picture about something that happened before and then something that happened after really took really long time to develop. And pictographs, which are basically little images of situations which are closer to expressing ideas, again, a lot of time passed before we came to that. And I'm a little bit picking on the side because my slides are over there. But the first scripts are actually really young. They were invented 6,000 years ago. And okay, first scripts were still, they still hold this property of an image, but it was very, let's say, on a level of symbol. And what happened with the invention of alphabet is a very big shift, because we were no longer expressing whole ideas in a picture, but basically humans understood that speech is made out of certain sounds, and they tried to come up with a code how to put these sounds on the paper. And this is a very, very big shift that was the, let's say, the source of a massive progress for humanity, as invention of any like really important code is. I think now we are in an age when we are inventing how to code artificial intelligence, and you already see in the span of our lifetime what enormous progress that type of understanding, insight, and knowledge brings. Maybe since you're not only a musician but also a mathematician, yeah.
Yes, definitely. I like your emphasis that writing is probably the biggest invention in the time of the human race, because it enables transferring the message through time and space.
Yes.
Before that, you could only talk to one another, and the message was conveyed only through people somehow, and the message actually got somehow diluted through time and space. You know, you lost a lot of it with translations and so on. But writing really enabled this pure message to be kept and transported and given away and accumulated. And this is the biggest importance of this. As mentioned, I'm a mathematician by profession, and I really love this coding aspect of it, and also this artificial intelligence that is booming in the last years, or also decades, but especially in the last years. It shows us what kind of progress is possible. But also, on the other hand, it shows us a little bit, it helps us understand how the learning is actually happening, how the brains develop, how certain centers for certain tasks are wired somehow, and what the process underneath it all is actually. Of course, we are just scratching the surface. However, we start to begin understanding the basic concepts and the basic principles. And I think this is really, really important.
I almost think we could say that invention of script enabled us to start to generate knowledge as a group of individuals, because before that all the knowledge was only, they were only able to store it within one head of one amazing individual, maybe a small circle around him or her. And now what is happening is, like, we connected all of our brains into one knowledge organism almost. And now we're having this power of artificial intelligence being able to process that knowledge on the level that is beyond the capacity of our brains. And this is really exciting. But nonetheless, reading is still a very basic skill that, you know, no individual can have a full participation in society without mastering it, and without mastering it with complete ease and automaticity. So yeah, I like to look at that timeline, because it really shows that, like, how long it took that we were busy with speech, and then the alphabet came. And it is important to understand that brains do fantastic task of putting these completely different worlds together. One is having something in scripture which is coded, and then having the meaning of language and words and ideas and everything, and then putting it together so we have a reading comprehension, right? And this is by far an easy task. So I just want to give a little insight how this, let's say, this learning happens in the head of a young child. So the first thing that a child needs to understand is how the language works. So that the language is something that is composed out of sentences and then words, and then so he has to have this feeling to hear the sounds of speech and understand them, but also manipulate with them, because you have to understand first what you are going to code and decode, right? And then the next step is you have to learn the code. You have to learn the connections between the graphemes and the phonemes, so the letters and the sounds that they represent. And this is unique for all the Western languages. It doesn't really matter whether you learn to decode in, you know, Spanish or French or English. There are different rules to it, but the concept, the basic concept, is the same for all languages. They're based on the Western alphabet. And this is what usually starts in school. Okay, and then the next thing is that child has to really fully automate this process. So it has to become so wired and so deeply wired in the brain that he uses almost zero capacity to process this code. And when no effort is used for that, then they can put all their intellectual capacity into understanding what they read, right? And this is usually when the gap happens, or where the gap is identified, although the reason why children struggle is usually on the level 1 and 2. So yeah, maybe I will just quickly touch on the dyslexia issue. So our brain has to, put this wiring in a certain order, and most of the children, when we teach them, they get this. But there is a percentage of children that just try to do it wrongly. It's almost like you would give them a trumpet and nobody would really tell them where they have to blow, and then most of the children would figure out where they have to blow, but there would be one child out of 10 that would just try to blow on the wrong side, and he could rehearse as much as possible, but he could never get it. But the good news is that of course our brain is extremely plastic. It learns and it adapts. So if we teach the child in a appropriate way, brain adjusts and rewires, and you can really see this on MRI imaging. And these children, which is important to say, they don't have any, let's say, lack of general intelligence. They're intelligent children. They just don't manage to put the pieces of the puzzle together in the right way. And of course, when we're looking at a school setting and let's say the general academic career of a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old when they enter the system, usually they go nicely. They layer the foundations out of logical awareness and the correspondences, phonics and fluency and so on. And then they are 9-10 years old, and then we give them books and now they have to study. But there is this part of population that is just managing by using all kind of compensational techniques to sort of get by. But in the moment when you really want them to read to learn, they sort of collapse. And this is, let's say, the very sad side of dyslexic children, because if they're not supported, they really get in all kind of emotional struggles. They call it secondary psychological issues. There is research showing that there is more suicides, teen suicides among dyslexic children, and things like that. So it's really important that we support them and help them early on before they face any failure. And yeah, of course, when you want to find solutions for this, the most important thing, which is in a way also very simple, but a lot of times not put in practice, is that we in educational system put almost all the same size steps for all the children. But some children cannot walk those stairs because the stairs are too high. So their peers, they go on and they progress, but they get stuck at the bottom of the staircase. So we as adults, what we need to find is how we can create smaller steps so they can continue with the same pace as the others. So we have to provide them little tools that their brains can learn through smaller steps, if you know what I mean. And I think it's also with learning a musical instrument, it is really important that there is this progression in teaching. Because if you give a child an instrument like a cello and you just say like, yeah, here is, just play it, they will never learn it on themselves. You have to teach them really first how to hold their hands, then and so on. Yeah, so I think this is for me personally also a big source of motivation and inspiration to find solutions and tricks that help in this context. So yeah, shall I continue my tell you my trick?
Definitely, we're extremely interested in that, but maybe let me just go back a little bit, back to the basics. I really loved how you explained the development of the writing through time, through history, and also I believe that process of learning how to read also has to be through a progress, through small steps, and have to take it slow in a way, however structured. And learning process has consists of 3 I's: immersion, imitation, and innovation. So immersion is when you get a lot of signals from your surroundings, and this is how you receive new things. Then imitation is when you're trying to repeat things and uh, beginning to master your skills somehow. And innovation is when you already have mastered all of them and are able to create something new out of what you have learned so far. So this is actually a sign that you have learned. Also, regarding the writing itself and dyslexia and everything, we believe also music and music activities are very connected also to reading, because also music can be written and read, and a lot of kids that used, or a lot of adults that used to go to music school and so on, they say music theory, oh, horrible, it wasn't clear and we didn't know what we were doing and so on, and it's too complicated and stuff. But the basics can be really simple, and we can teach kids the basic stuff in really simple way.
Martin, maybe I should stop sharing my screen for, sorry.
Okay, just for a short while, so that I can explain and show. And yeah. Patricia, she's a musician, and she does that a lot with small kids. And we were told
just give me 1 second so I find because the
stop sharing button. No problem. We will talk a little bit. So take your time. No hurry.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah, some researchers claim that dyslexia is also caused by not sufficiently developed P center in the brain, which somehow connects what you see with what you hear. So this has to be developed through continuous practice. So how this could be done with preschool kids, let's say 3 years old, or sometimes even a bit less, and up to 3, 4, 5 years old, we do this practice that we call it the flute, because you can do it with an accompaniment of a flute. However, you can also use your voice, no problem. So Patricia, show a little bit how this is done. So let's make separate patterns. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, can you see it? Perhaps, hopefully.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. The thing is that you need to somehow show the movement of sound going up and going down, or staying the same. Or sometimes you can also maybe I can show it. Yeah. You can also show the length, like pa 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 pa. So that you can depict the pitch and the length of the sound. In this way, kids start to understand the connection between what they see and what they hear. And it's also a foundation for reading, because they need to understand that what they see, the letters, correspond to what they hear, or what they have to pronounce, the sounds, the word, the sounds. Yeah. So one of the let's say trainings that you can do is, for example, you can first of course do some patterns like so that they see what's going up and what's going down, the movements of the sounds, or remaining the same. And then of course you can also do several patterns, like you can draw maybe, or, and another one like, and then you sing something and you say, ooh. So which one was this, you know? And they have to identify the right one. It was the third one, just in case anybody didn't know. It's the third one. And you can do various patterns like this and train them to somehow see that there's a difference between the different patterns, and it corresponds actually to the sound, to the music. And this is later on developed into musical notation. So later on, you just say, okay, these are the notes here, and here are the lines, and so on. And this also corresponds to length, and so on. So then you go into details. However, the basic component, let's say the duration and the pitch, can be depicted very simply, very easily. And this can be understood by practically everyone. You don't need to be in elementary school or even higher to understand this. Really simple concept. However, what you need to teach the kids is to understand and to grasp this connection between the concepts and between what they see and what they hear, and to understand this concept. Okay, the line going down means the sound going down, the pitch going down, the line going up is the pitch going up, and so on. And these are activities that can be done by kids very early, so 2, 3 years, but then of course later on also 4 or 5, and then you make it more complex and difficult. However, you start with these simple stuff really early. Yeah.
Although
You had a question?
you keep on saying that it's very simple, but actually it is not, because the
not for everyone, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, also it's a very complex cognitive task, yeah, to translate the orientation in space into orientation, or however you would call it, into orientation of sound. And what I have noticed working with kids with dyslexia is that sometimes things that you really think like, yeah, but it is not something I have to teach you, this is something you just know, you realize, no, that these are also things that you don't just know, and that these kids really have problems with it. But yes, because they are smart kids, if you explain it with very simple and explicit, in an explicit manner, they grasp it. So these things are very teachable, right? Yeah. And I really love this. So when you're working like this, do you let them draw while they sing? So all kinds of integration.
Yeah. At the beginning, they just immersion and imitation, that's the beginning, and then they do the invention. So let's say first couple of months they listen and repeat what we see. For example, we draw on the board, and then they repeat it with their hands, like woo, 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 and things like that. And we've also noticed that it's for some kids it's really difficult, and it takes time to understand, or maybe even they don't get it, but I believe that's also a good sign of possible problems maybe later on for dyslexia. So it can be a signal that somebody has really problems with that, they're struggling, and they need to focus more on this. So it's an early, let's say, early alert somehow with this kind of activities.
Yeah. And what is also really important when teaching reading is that you try to integrate other senses, so and body movement and hearing, because our brain was not made for two-dimensional text, right? It was made to learn from a three-dimensional environment. And a lot of times kids that are better in certain things are exactly the kids that struggle with simple concepts, for example, orientating on a page because they constantly see things in 3 dimensions, in 3 dimensions. And yeah, these are good exercises. Maybe this is a nice opportunity for me to jump back to my letters. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I can make a nice link. I will start to share my screen again. Okay. So because the brain is made for 3-dimensional world, you know, in 3-dimensional world, if you have a chair and you turn it upside down, it's still a chair. And if you turn it around, it's still a chair. And our brain knows that it doesn't matter how a thing is oriented, it's still whatever it is. But with letters, that is not the case. So certain letters have a shape. Oops. Sorry. Certain letters have shapes that are extremely similar. And basically all the children up to the age of 7 have problem distinguishing it. For example, V and D are the notorious pair, but also U and N are just mirrored vertically. So what I figured out is that if you add color to the shapes that are very similar, brain uses different neural pathway to make the connection between, in that case, between the color and the shape and the sound. So it really helps them because the brain very quickly learns, okay, what is pink is U and not an N. So it doesn't have to focus so much on the shape anymore. And when I figured this out, I really colored so many books by hand to simplify this process, because child just needs to read and read and read, so that through the process of what they call orthographic mapping, you acquire an enormous arsenal of words that are stored in your long-term memory for immediate retrieval. So this happens through the process of decoding, so carefully looking sound by sound. But once you read a word a couple of times, it gets stored like in a dictionary. So when you see it next time, it's almost like you cannot help not read it. When you see written apple, you know immediately that's an apple, and you see it and you smell it and you know what it is, right? But if this process is difficult, then kids do not get enough practice, and this dictionary that they need to build up is just not getting anywhere. So this is in a way a trick to help them speed up this process. So what I wanted to do is come up with a tool that would help early intervention. So before kid is really, when they're still rather young, and this dictionary that they have to build is still rather small, and then help them immediately. And I wanted to develop something that that parents will be able to deliver, because parents are the first teachers of their children. You know, they teach them to walk and to eat and to, you know, wash their hands and stuff like that. So they're very good teachers for small children, and they know their children very, very well. So we created a tool where you can scan any text. We also have a library of books, but you can scan any text and you can just manipulate this this text in such a way that it suits to the specific problem of child. You can also, for example, accentuate vowels, and accentuate vowels help child distinguish different sounds and identify syllables, and basically get through the code, get through the text. Then we have some other tools like a focus frame, and we have some statistics on reading, so to really, you know, give them a very clear feedback that they're working and that they're progressing, because motivation in any learning, and especially in learning such a difficult skill, is very, very important. Yeah, so basically our mission is to create tools where all of the children can progress equally, independent whether they have some specific issues or not. So this was more or less my maybe just a few words that as you were mentioning, including body and all the senses in teaching is very important. So we are developing some ideas around learning that are, let's say, multisensory. We even developed a VR game, first dyslexia-inspired VR game, we like to say, because it's important to share awareness about this trouble, so these children are not stigmatized. And last but not least, we are creating materials. Some of them are out there to buy on Amazon, and some of them are free to download from our website. And of course, yeah, we created a guide for parents, and this is also like a little gift for your viewers today, ebook that we prepared for parents. It's yeah, it's this one. If you see it, it's a magazine style, but very science of reading based. All the latest research, what we know that for sure is good for a child is in there in a parent-friendly way.
Perfect. So people can download this and print it out themselves or something, I guess. It's
yes.
a PDF
Yeah.
or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So yeah, somewhere in the notes we will post a link how they can get it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I'm sure everyone will be very happy to receive it and to read it and get some benefit out of it and help their kids. So even those who are not dyslexic, I'm sure they can improve their skills and reading quality, the speed and everything, right? With that kind of approaches and tools. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I really love this discussion. It was extremely interesting, and I'm sure also useful for anybody that has small children. I really thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and I really wishing you all the best in your efforts and your plans, and I hope you'll be able to help millions of parents and children around the world.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Any last words or?
No. Maybe just one little tip, since we're in this musical topic, that and I'm saying this because it's not a very frequent trick, but it really works, is that if your child struggles, you can let him pretend that he's opera singing whatever he needs to read, and they find it hilarious, especially if you do it alone. But it really helps them to blend sounds together. It sort of just skips over to a struggle. So if your child struggles to read, ask him if he can do the opera of the text.
Okay, perfect. Great idea. Definitely. Yeah. I've also heard that it helps perhaps with the stuttering, also with the adults.
Yes. Yeah,
if they say that, if they try to kind of sing the lyrics, the text, it helps them to make it smoother and easier. Yeah. Cool. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, thank you very much. It was a huge pleasure. Wishing you all the best. And we're looking forward to hear more from you soon again.
Okay. Yeah, the same.
Okay.
Thank you very much
care.
for having me. Bye, Martin.
Yeah.
Bye, Patricia. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.